In the decaying walls of Shadowbrook Manor, Jack Harlan inherits more than just a house. He inherits a cosmic curse. Beneath the creaking floorboards, laughter echoes, not human but ancient, from starborn beings sealed away for millennia. As their voices weave into his dreams, showing him his lost daughter and worlds beyond imagining, Jack faces a chilling choice: resist their call or open the gate to unleash a cosmic horror that could swallow the world. Will he silence the laughter or join its mad dance? Chapter 1. The old house calls in, a small town named Willow Creek, where trees bent low like they carried heavy secrets, lived a man named Jack Harlan. Jack was 35 years old, with brown hair that always looked messy and eyes that seemed tired from too many late nights. He worked as a teacher in the local school, showing kids how to read and write simple stories. But Jack's life felt empty. His wife had left him 2 years ago, taking their little girl with her. He missed them every day, like a hole in his chest that wouldn't heal. One rainy afternoon in fall, Jack got a letter in the mail. It was from a lawyer in the city. The letter said his great-uncle, Elias Harlan, had died. Elias was an old man Jack barely knew, a hermit who lived in a big house far from town. The house, called Shadowbrook Manor, now belonged to Jack. "You are the last family," the letter read. "Come claim it, or it goes to the state." Jack stared at the paper for a long time. He had no money saved, and his small apartment felt like a cage. Maybe this house could be a new start. He packed a bag with clothes, books, and a photo of his daughter, and drove his old car down winding roads. The sky grew dark as he went, clouds thick and grey like dirty wool dot. After hours of driving, Jack saw the house. It stood on a hill, surrounded by dead trees that clawed at the air. The manor was huge, with tall windows like empty eyes, and a roof that sagged in places. Vines crawled up the walls, green and twisted. Jack parked his car and stepped out. The air smelled of wet earth and something sour, like old fruit gone bad. He walked up the creaky steps to the front door. The key from the lawyer fit the lock with a click. Inside, dust floated in the dim light. The floors were wood, dark and scratched. Furniture sat covered in white sheets, like ghosts waiting to wake. Jack coughed from the dust and flipped a switch. Yellow light flickered on from a lamp. "This place needs work," Jack said to himself. He explored the rooms. The kitchen had rusty pots. The living room had a big fireplace, cold and black. Upstairs, bedrooms with beds that looked unused for years. In one room, he found old photos on a table. They showed Elias as a young man, smiling with friends. But in later photos, Elias looked scared, his eyes wide. Jack picked a bedroom for himself, the one with the window facing the woods. He unpacked his things and made the bed with fresh sheets he brought. Night came fast. Outside, wind howled through the trees. Jack ate a sandwich from his bag and read a book to relax. But as he lay down, something felt wrong. The house was too quiet, like it held its breath. Then, it started, a soft sound from below. At first, Jack thought it was the wind, but no, it was laughter, low and quiet, like kids playing far away. It came from under the floorboards, right beneath his bed. Jack sat up, heart beating fast. "Hello," he called. The laughter stopped. He shook his head. "Just my mind playing tricks," he muttered. "Old houses make noises." He lay back down and closed his eyes. Sleep came slow. The next morning, sun peeked through the curtains. Jack felt better. He made coffee in the kitchen and planned his day. He would clean the place and see if he could sell some old stuff for money. Maybe fix it up and live here. The town was close enough for his job. As he swept the dust, he found a loose board in the hall. It wiggled under his foot. Curious, he pried it up with a tool. Underneath was a small box, wood and carved with strange marks, like stars and swirls. Jack opened it. Inside was a key, old and brass, and a note. The note said, "Do not go below. The stars laugh." Jack frowned. What does that mean? He put the key in his pocket and the note away. Elias must have been crazy in his old age. That night, the laughter came again, louder this time. It bubbled up like water from a spring, happy but wrong. Jack jumped from bed and pressed his ear to the floor. The wood was cold. The laughs sounded like many voices, all mixed, some high, some low. They stopped when he knocked on the board. Jack couldn't sleep after that. He paced the room, thinking, maybe animals under the house. or wind in pipes. But it didn't sound like that. It sounded human, but not quite. The next day, Jack went to town for supplies. He bought food, tools, and asked around about Elias. At the store, an old woman named Mrs. Grady shook her head. Elias was odd. Stayed in that house alone. People said he talked to himself, or to something else. What do you mean? Jack asked. She leaned close. Heard laughs at night, they say, but no one there. Stay away from the cellar. Boy. Jack laughed it off, but inside he felt cold. Back at the house, he searched for the cellar door. It was in the kitchen, behind a curtain. Locked. The key from the box fit. He turned it, and the door creaked open. Stairs led down into dark dot. Jack grabbed a light and went down. The air was thick, smelled like dirt and metal. The cellar was big, with stone walls and shelves of jars. Old tools hung on hooks. In the center, a trapdoor in the floor, locked with chains. The laughter started again, right under that trapdoor, clear and loud. Jack dropped his light and ran up the stairs. He slammed the door and locked it, heart pounding. He sat in the kitchen. This can't be real, he whispered. But it was. Something was down there, something that laughed. Days passed. Jack tried to ignore it. He cleaned the house, read books, even wrote letters to his daughter, but every night the laughter came. It grew stronger, like it knew he was listening. Sometimes it sounded like words, but twisted. Come play, it seemed to say. Stars are fun. Jack lost sleep. His eyes had dark circles. He ate little. One night, the laughter didn't stop. It went on and on, filling the house. Jack yelled, "Shut up!" But it laughed harder. He grabbed the key and went to the cellar. The trapdoor shook a bit, like something pushed from below. Jack knelt and listened. The voices whispered now. "Open, see us. We wait." Jack's hand shook as he touched the chain. Part of him wanted to open it, to see what made that sound, but fear stopped him. He ran back up and barred the door. The next morning, Jack found scratches on the kitchen floor, like claws had tried to dig up. They weren't there before. He decided to learn more. In Elias's study, he found books, old ones about stars and space. One book had pictures of strange shapes, like blobs with eyes. The words said they came from far away, beyond the sky. They brought madness with their laughs. Jack read all day. The book told of ancient times, when these things fell to earth. People locked them away, but their voices leaked out. Laughter that drove men crazy. Is that what's below? Jack thought. It seemed wild, but the laughs matched. That night, the laughter was a roar. The house shook. Jack hid under his blanket like a kid, but then it changed. It sounded sad, like crying mixed in. Jack couldn't take it. He went down again. This time he unlocked the chain. The trapdoor opened easy. Below was a hole, deep and black. Cold air rushed up, smelling of stars, somehow vast and empty. At the bottom, faint light glowed, and eyes, many eyes, looking up. They laughed, but now Jack saw they were trapped. These things from space, lonely and hungry for company. Jack stepped back. "What are you?" he asked. "We are the Forgotten." A voice echoed in his head. Not spoken, but thought. "Come join our game." Jack slammed the door shut and locked it, but now he knew. The laughter wasn't evil, it was a call, a cosmic joke from beings older than time. He sat on the floor, head in hands. What to do? Tell someone. They would think him mad. Leave. But the house was his now, and something pulled him to stay. As days turned to weeks, Jack changed. He laughed sometimes, alone. The sounds below became friends. He talked to them, shared stories. His great-uncle must have done the same. But deep down, Jack feared, the beings wanted out. Their laughter promised wonders, but also end. Cosmic end, where stars ate worlds. One evening, as sunset red, Jack found another note in the box. Elias wrote, "They came in a meteor long ago. I sealed them, but they called, if you hear, run." Jack tore the note. Too late, he heard. And now, he listened. The laughter swelled, welcoming him home. Chapter 2. First laughs in the dark. Jack Harlan woke to a silence so thick it felt like a weight on his chest. For the first time in days, the laughter beneath the floorboards didn't greet him in the night. He lay in bed, staring at the cracked ceiling of Shadowbrook Manor, his great-uncle Elias's old house. The quiet was strange, almost wrong, like the house held its breath. Jack, 35 and tired, rubbed his eyes. His brown hair stuck to his forehead with sweat. even though the room was cold. He felt a pang of something relief, maybe, but mixed with a hollow ache. Part of him, to his surprise, missed the laughter. He swung his legs over the side of the bed, the wood floor creaking under his feet. The room smelled of dust and old wood, with a faint sour tang that clung to everything in the house. Sunlight peeked through the heavy curtains, painting stripes of gold across the floor. Jack stood, stretched, and tried to shake off the unease. "Just a house," he muttered to himself, his voice rough from sleep. "Old houses make noises, that's all." Downstairs, he made breakfast in the kitchen, a slice of bread from his bag and coffee boiled on the rusty stove. The kitchen was a mess of peeling paint and cobwebs, but Jack didn't mind. He was used to making do. Back in his small apartment in Willow Creek, he'd lived on simple meals since his wife Clara left with their daughter, Lily. The thought of Lily, her bright smile and tiny hands, stabbed at him. He pushed it away and focused on the coffee. Black and bitter dot as he ate, a sound broke the quiet. A giggle, soft and quick, like a child hiding nearby. Jack froze, his bread halfway to his mouth. The giggle came again, bubbling up from under the table. He leaned down, heart thumping, and peered into the shadows. Nothing, just dust and scuffed wood. But the sound didn't stop. It grew, spreading like ripples in a pond. Now it came from the walls, the floor, even the ceiling, a chorus of faint, playful laughs. Jack dropped his bread and stood so fast his chair scraped the floor. "Who's there?" he called, his voice louder than he meant. The laughter stopped, sharp and sudden, like a radio switched off. His pulse raced. He checked under the table again, then around the kitchen. Empty. The house was empty, except for him. He grabbed his jacket and ran outside. The cool morning air hit his face, smelling of wet leaves and earth. The manor loomed behind him, its dark windows watching. Jack walked to his car, a beat-up sedan parked on the gravel drive, and leaned against it. His breath came in short bursts. "Get a grip," he told himself. "You're tired, you're imagining things." But he wasn't so sure. The laughter wasn't like wind or creaking pipes. It sounded alive, human almost, but twisted in a way that made his skin crawl. He thought of the trapdoor in the cellar, the one he'd found yesterday, chained shut with strange eyes glowing below, and the note from Elias, "Do not go below. The stars laugh." Jack shivered, though the sun was warm. He decided to walk to clear his head. The woods around the manor were thick, with tall trees that blocked most of the light. Their branches twisted like fingers, and the ground was soft with moss. Jack followed a path that wound through the trees, his boots crunching on leaves. The air was crisp, and for a moment, he felt better. The world outside the house seemed normal, safe. But then he heard it again, a giggle, faint, carried on the wind. He stopped, turning in a circle. The sound came from everywhere and nowhere, like it lived in the air itself. "Hello?" he called. No answer, just the rustle of leaves. He walked faster, heart pounding again. The giggles followed, growing louder, then fading, like a game of tag. Back at the house, Jack locked the door. Behind him, he stood in the hall, listening. Silence again. He laughed, a shaky sound. "You're losing it, Jack," he said. But he didn't feel like laughing. He felt watched. To keep busy, he decided to clean. The house was a mess, and work might calm him. He grabbed a broom and started sweeping the living room. Dust flew up, catching the light like tiny stars. The furniture, still covered in sheets, looked like hunched figures. Jack pulled a sheet off a chair, revealing carved wood and faded red fabric. It was old but beautiful, like something from a museum. As he swept, he found more loose floorboards. One in the corner of the room wiggled under his foot. Curious, he knelt and pried it up with his fingers. Underneath was a small cloth bag, tied with string. Inside were marbles, colorful glass ones, like kids used to play with. But some were odd, with swirls that seemed to glow faintly, like stars. Trapped inside, Jack held one up to the light. The swirl moved, slow and liquid, like it was alive. He dropped it, startled. The marble rolled across the floor and stopped by the fireplace. Jack stared, his mouth dry. "Just a trick of the light," he said. But he didn't touch it again. He put the bag back under the board and covered it. That night, Jack couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, the house creaking around him. The silence felt heavy again, like it was waiting. Then it came, the laughter, louder than before. It poured from under the floor, filling the room. It wasn't just giggles now. There were voices, mixed together, high and low, fast and slow. They overlapped, like a crowd of children all talking at once. Jack caught words, or pieces of them. Play, come, stars, fun. He sat up, sweat on his face. Stop it, he shouted. The laughter paused, then started again, softer, like it was teasing him. Jack grabbed his flashlight and went to the hall. He stood over the loose board from earlier, listening. The sound was clear now, coming from below, not the cellar, but somewhere deeper. He thought of the trapdoor, those eyes in the dark, the note, "Do not go below." But the laughter pulled at him, like a hook in his chest. He wanted to know, needed to know. Jack went to the kitchen and opened the cellar door. The stairs were dark, the air cold and damp. He clicked on his flashlight and went down, step by slow step. The cellar smelled of dirt and rust, same as before. The trapdoor was there, chained shut. The laughter was loudest here, vibrating through the floor. He knelt by the trapdoor and pressed his ear to it. The voices were clearer now. "Jack, come play. We see you." His name. They knew his name. He stumbled back, dropping the flashlight. It rolled, the beam spinning across the walls. Shadows danced, and for a moment, he thought he saw faces in them smiling. With too many eyes, he ran upstairs, slammed the door, and pushed a table against it. His hands shook as he sat on the floor, breathing hard. "This isn't real," he whispered. "It can't be." But it was. The laughter followed him, softer now, like it knew he was scared. It came from the walls, the floor, even the air. Jack grabbed his phone and called Mrs. Grady, the old woman from the store. It was late, but he didn't care. "Hello." Her voice was sleepy. "Mrs. Grady, it's Jack Harlan, about the house. You said Elias heard laughs. What did you mean?" A pause. "You heard them, didn't you?" Her voice was sharp now. "Get out, boy. That house ain't right. Elias said things lived there, things from elsewhere. He tried to warn folks." "What things?" Jack asked. "Old things, not human. They laugh to trick you. Don't listen." She hung up. Jack stared at the phone. "Not human." The words stuck in his head. He thought of the book he'd found in Ilias's study, the one about stars and creatures that fell to earth. He went to the study, a small room with shelves of dusty books. He pulled the book down and flipped through it. The pages were yellow, the words handwritten. Pictures showed strange shapes, blobs with eyes, tentacles, mouths that laughed. The text said they came in a meteor long ago and were sealed away by people who feared them. Jack read until his eyes burned. The book called them the Forgotten Ones, beings from beyond the stars. Their laughter could twist minds, make people see things, want things. They were trapped, but their voices leaked out, calling to anyone who listened. He closed the book. The laughter started again, louder, like it knew he was learning. It wasn't just below now, it was everywhere. Jack ran to his room and shut the door, but it didn't help. The sound was inside his head, too. He sat on the bed, clutching the key from the box he'd found, the one that opened the trapdoor. Part of him wanted to go back down, to see what was there. The laughter promised wondrous colors no one had seen, songs from the stars, but another part of him, the part that remembered Ilias's note, screamed to run. The next day, Jack tried to leave. He packed his bag and got in his car. But as he drove down the road, the laughter followed. It came from the trees, the sky, even the car's radio. He turned it off, but the giggles kept going. He stopped the car and sat, hands gripping the wheel. The house was behind him, still visible on the hill. It looked bigger somehow, like it was waiting. Jack drove back. He didn't know why. Maybe because running felt useless. Maybe because the laughter was part of him now. He walked inside, and the house felt alive, warm, like it was glad he returned. That night, the laughter changed. It wasn't just playful. It was sad, too, like a child crying for a lost toy. Jack listened, and for the first time, he felt sorry for whatever was below. "What do you want?" he whispered. The voices answered, not in words but in feelings. Loneliness, hunger, a need to be free. Jack's eyes stung with tears. He didn't know why. He thought of Lily, how he missed her. Maybe these things missed something too. He went to the cellar. Again, the trapdoor glowed faintly, like starlight leaked from below. Jack touched the chain, his fingers steady now. The laughter swelled, welcoming, begging. He unlocked the chain and lifted the trapdoor. The hole was deep, blacker than night, but at the bottom, lights danced tiny, like stars, but alive. Eyes looked up, hundreds of them, sparkling and sad. "Come," they whispered in his mind. "Be with us." Jack stepped back, heart racing. He wanted to jump in, to see what they saw, to know what they knew, but fear held him. He closed the trapdoor and locked it again. For days, Jack lived in a haze. He barely ate, barely slept. The laughter was constant now, a song that never stopped. He talked to it sometimes, telling stories about his life, his daughter, his pain. The voices listened, and sometimes they laughed like they understood. One morning, he found scratches on the cellar door, deep, like claws had tried to get out. He stared, his stomach cold. The laughter was louder that day, more desperate. Jack knew he couldn't ignore it forever. Something was coming, something big. He went back to the study and found another note, hidden in the book. Ilias's writing, shaky. "They want out. They'll use you. Don't let them." Jack crumpled the note. Too late, he was already theirs. The laughter swelled, and Jack laughed with it. The house shook, and for a moment he saw in the sky, but in his mind, endless and bright. The forgotten ones were calling, and Jack was listening. Chapter 3. Secrets under the wood. Jack Harlan sat on the edge of his bed, the old mattress creaking under his weight. The air in Shadowbrook Manor felt heavy, like it carried the weight of years. His hands shook as he held the brass key he'd found under the floorboards, its strange carvings catching the dim light from a lamp. The laughter from below had stopped again, but the silence was worse. It pressed against his ears, making his head throb. He hadn't slept well in days, not since he opened the trapdoor in the cellar and saw those eyes, hundreds of them, glowing like stars in a black void. They haunted his dreams, calling him with voices that weren't voices, whispering promises of wonders and terrors. Jack rubbed his face, trying to shake the fog in his mind. He was 35, a teacher who used to explain simple stories to kids, but now he felt like a kid himself, scared of shadows. His life back in Willow Creek teaching, missing his daughter Lily, living in a cramped apartment seemed far away. This house, his great-uncle Elias's house, was all he had now, and it was changing him. He stood and paced the bedroom, the wood floor cold under his bare feet. The house smelled of dust and something sharp, like metal left in the rain. Outside, the wind howled through the dead trees, their branches scratching at the windows like fingers. Jack tried to focus on normal things, cleaning, eating, maybe calling someone in town, but his thoughts kept drifting to the trapdoor, to the laughter, to the note Elias left. "Do not go below. The stars laugh." "What am I doing here?" he muttered, gripping the key tighter. He wanted to leave, to drive back to town and forget this place, but every time he tried, something pulled him back. The laughter wasn't just sound, it was a feeling, a tug at his heart, like Lily's hand when she was little, pulling him to play. He hated how it made him feel, scared, but also curious, like he needed to know more. Jack decided to explore the house again. Maybe he'd find answers, something to explain the sounds, the eyes, the way the air seemed to hum sometimes. He grabbed his flashlight and a notebook, thinking he'd write down anything strange. It made him feel like he had control, even if he didn't. The house was big, with rooms he hadn't seen yet. He started in the attic, climbing a narrow staircase behind a door in the hall. The steps groaned, and dust fell like snow. The attic was a maze of boxes, old furniture, and cobwebs that clung to his hair. The air was thick, smelling of mold and forgotten things. His flashlight beam cut through the dark, showing trunks with rusted locks and shelves of cracked jars. In one corner, he found a painting covered in a cloth. He pulled the cloth off, coughing as dust flew up. The painting showed a night sky, but not like any sky Jack knew. The stars were wrong, too big, too bright, swirling in patterns that hurt his eyes. In the center was a shape, like a cloud with eyes and mouths, all laughing. Jack stepped back, his heart racing. The shape looked like the drawings in Ilias's book, the one about the forgotten ones, creatures from beyond the stars. He left the painting and kept searching. Under a pile of old clothes, he found a journal, its leather cover cracked. The pages were filled with Ilias's handwriting, small and messy. Jack sat on a crate and read. The entry started normally, Ilias, writing about the house, the weather, his garden. But over time, they changed. "They laugh at night," one page said. "I thought it was children at first, but no children live here. It comes from below, always below. I locked the trap door, but they know I'm here." Jack's stomach twisted. He flipped to another page. The stars speak. They want out. They show me things in my sleep, worlds of light, worlds of teeth. I can't leave. They won't let me. The last entry was short. I'm sorry, Jack. If you find this, run. Jack closed the journal, his hands cold. Elias knew his name, even years ago. Jack hadn't seen his great-uncle since he was a kid. He tucked the journal under his arm and went downstairs. The house felt different now, like it was watching him. The walls seemed to lean in, the shadows too dark. He went to the study next, where he'd found the book about the forgotten ones. The room was small, with shelves of books and papers scattered on a desk. Jack sat and opened the journal again, reading by lamplight. Elias wrote about finding the trapdoor when he moved in, hearing the laughter, and feeling drawn to it. They promised knowledge, he wrote, things no man should know. I saw a city in my dreams, made of light and bone. They built it long ago, before men walked the earth. Jack's head hurt. The words felt heavy, like they carried more than meaning. He looked at the book about the forgotten ones again. It said they fell in a meteor thousands of years ago, and were sealed underground by ancient people who feared their power. Their laughter could twist minds, make people want to free them. Elias must have heard it, just like Jack. He closed the book and noticed something on the desk, a small wooden box, carved with the same star and swirl patterns as the key. He opened it. Inside was a stone, smooth and black, about the size of an egg. When he touched it, it was warm, and his fingers tingled. The stone had faint lines, like cracks, but they glowed faintly, like the marbles he'd found yesterday. Jack put the stone down fast. It felt wrong, like it was watching him. He shut the box and pushed it away. The laughter started again, soft at first, coming from the floor. It grew louder, bubbling up like water. Jack covered his ears, but it didn't help. The sound was inside him now, in his bones. He ran to the kitchen and checked the cellar door, still locked, the table still pushed against it. But the laughter wasn't just from the cellar anymore. It came from everywhere, the walls, the ceiling, even the stone in the box. Jack grabbed his phone and called Mrs. Grady again. The old woman from town, Jack. Her voice was sharp. You're still in that house? I found things, he said, his voice shaking. A journal, a stone, the laughter, it's everywhere. Get out, she snapped. Elias told me once, years ago, that house is cursed. Things live there, things that ain't human. They get in your head. What are they? Jack asked. Old as the stars, she said. They came here long ago. Elias said they're trapped, but they talk through laughs. Don't listen, boy. They'll make you open the door. She hung up again. Jack stood in the kitchen, the phone still in his hand. The laughter was louder now, like a crowd of voices all talking at once. He heard his name again. Jack, play, come see. He dropped the phone and ran to the living room. The loose floorboard was there, the one with the marbles. He pried it up again. The bag was gone. In its place was a hole, small but deep, like it went through the floor to somewhere else. Jack shone his flashlight into it. The light didn't reach the bottom, but he saw something move, something shiny, like wet skin, with eyes that blinked. He slammed the board back down and stumbled back. The laughter roared, shaking the house. Glasses rattled in the kitchen. The lamp flickered. Jack ran to his room and locked the door, but it didn't matter. The sound was inside him, pulling at his thoughts. He sat on the bed, clutching the journal. His eyes fell on the key in his hand. The carvings glowed faintly, like the stone. He threw it across the room. It hit the wall and fell. But the laughter didn't stop. It was sad now, mixed with cries, like something begging to be let out. Jack didn't sleep that night. He sat up, listening, writing in his notebook. He wrote what he heard, what he felt. The voices promised things, secrets of the stars, a place where he'd never be alone. He thought of Lily, how he'd give anything to see her again. The voices seemed to know. We can show you, they whispered. Come below. The next morning, Jack felt different, tired but calm. The laughter was quiet, like it was waiting. He went to the study and opened the box again. The stone was still warm, its glow stronger. He held it, and images flashed in his mind, stars spinning, worlds of light and shadow, faces that weren't human but felt familiar. He dropped the stone, gasping. He knew he couldn't stay away from the trapdoor forever. The house wanted him to go down. The voices wanted it. Maybe he wanted it too. That day, he explored more. He found scratches on the walls, faint but new, like something had clawed from inside. In the bathroom, the mirror showed his reflection, but for a moment, his eyes looked wrong to many, too bright. He blinked, and it was gone. At night, the laughter came back, louder than ever. It wasn't just below now, it was in the air, in his head, in his blood. Jack went to the cellar door and unlocked it. The stairs were dark, but he didn't need the flashlight. The trapdoor glowed, a soft pulse of light. He knelt and touched the chain. The voices sang, happy and desperate. "Jack," they said, "you're home." He didn't open the trapdoor. Not yet, but he sat there, listening, until dawn. The laughter was his now, part of him, and he wasn't sure he wanted it to stop. Chapter 4. Dreams from the Stars. Jack Harlan no longer trusted his own eyes. The days in Shadowbrook Manor blurred together, each one heavier than the last, as if the house itself was sinking into the earth. He sat in the kitchen, a cold cup of coffee in his hands, staring at the cellar door. The brass key, its carvings pulsing faintly like a heartbeat, lay on the table. He hadn't touched it since last night, when he'd sat by the trapdoor in the cellar, listening to the laughter. That called his name. It was softer now, but never gone, humming in the walls like a distant song. Jack, 35 and fraying at the edges, felt it in his bones, a pull, a promise, a warning. He hadn't slept properly in weeks. His brown hair was a tangled mess, and his eyes, once bright, were shadowed with exhaustion. The house was changing him, or maybe he was changing himself. The laughter wasn't just sound anymore. It was a feeling, a thread woven into his thoughts. It came in waves, sometimes playful, sometimes sad, always calling. And last night, it had brought dreams, vivid, impossible dreams that left him gasping. When he woke in the dream, Jack stood on a plain of black glass under a sky of swirling stars. The stars weren't fixed like the ones above Willow Creek. They moved, spiraling in patterns that made his head spin. A city rose in the distance, its towers made of light and bone, glowing with colors he couldn't name. The laughter was there, not from below, but all around, coming from shapes that floated in the air, blobs of shadow with too many eyes, mouths that opened and closed, singing in voices that weren't human. They called him friend and wanderer, promising to show him secrets of the cosmos. Jack felt small but not afraid, like he belonged there. When he woke, his pillow was wet with tears, and he didn't know why. Now, in the grey morning light, Jack sipped his coffee and tried to make sense of it. The dream felt real, more real than the kitchen with its peeling paint and rusty sink. He thought of Elias's journal, found in the attic, and the book about the forgotten ones, creatures from beyond the stars, sealed beneath the earth. Their laughter, the book said, could twist minds, make people see things, want things. Jack wondered if he was losing his mind, or if the house was showing him something true. He stood, his legs shaky, and grabbed the journal from the counter. He flipped to a page he'd marked with a scrap of paper. Elias's handwriting was shaky. They come in dreams, cities of light, skies of fire. They say they're trapped, but they lie. They want to be free, to eat the world. Don't listen, Jack. Don't dream. Jack's stomach twisted. Elias knew he'd come here, years before Jack even got the letter, about the house. How he slammed the journal shut and paced the kitchen. The floorboards creaked, and for a moment, he thought he heard a giggle, quick and soft, from under the table. He froze, listening. Nothing, just the wind outside, rattling the windows. He needed to get out, to clear his head. Jack grabbed his jacket and drove to Willow Creek, the town, a short drive down the winding road. The air outside was crisp, smelling of wet leaves and pine. In town, he stopped at the general store, hoping to talk to Mrs. Grady again. She'd warned him about the house, about things that weren't human. Maybe she knew more. The store was small, with shelves of canned goods, and a counter cluttered with papers. Mrs. Grady, her grey hair pulled tight in a bun, looked up as the bell jingled. Her eyes narrowed when she saw Jack. "You look like death, boy," she said, her voice sharp. "Still in that house?" Jack nodded, leaning on the counter. "I found Elias's journal. He wrote about dreams, things from the stars, and the laughter. It's in my head now. I see things when I sleep." Mrs. Grady's face went pale. She leaned close, her voice low. "Elias told me about the dreams, said they showed him places no man should see. He tried to fight it, locked that trapdoor tight, but it got to him, made him talk to it like it was family." "What is it?" Jack asked, his throat dry. "What's down there?" She shook her head. "Old things, older than the earth. Elias said they fell in a rock from the sky, long before people lived here. The folks back then buried them deep, but they ain't dead. They talk through laughs, through dreams. They want someone to let them out. Jack's hands clenched. What happens if they get out? Mrs. Grady looked away, her eyes distant. Elias said they'd eat everything, land, sky, us. There, hungry, Jack, hungry for a world that ain't theirs. He left the store with a bag of groceries, but her words stayed with him. The drive back was quiet, the road empty except for the trees leaning over like they were listening. At the house, Jack unloaded his things and sat in the living room, the journal open in his lap. The laughter started again, soft and teasing, like kids playing hide-and-seek. He ignored it and read. Elias wrote about the dreams in detail. A city that shifted like water, stars that sang, creatures that promised knowledge but asked for freedom. They know your name, he wrote, they know your pain. They use it. I saw my wife in the dreams, but it wasn't her. It was them, wearing her face. Jack thought of Lily. In his dream last night, he'd seen her, standing on the black glass plane, her small hand reaching for him. But her eyes were wrong to many, too bright, like the things below. He shivered and closed the journal. That night, Jack tried to stay awake, drinking coffee and reading by lamplight. But his eyes grew heavy, and sleep pulled him under. The dream came again, stronger. He was back on the plane, the stars swirling above. The city was closer now, its towers pulsing with light. The laughter filled the air, not scary, but warm, like a welcome. Shapes moved around him, their eyes sparkling, their mouths singing. Jack, they said, their voices in his head. You're one of us. Come see. In the dream, Jack walked toward the city. The ground was smooth, warm under his feet. The shapes floated beside him, guiding him. They showed him things, worlds where time didn't exist, where colors danced like living, things where he could know everything. He saw Lily again, smiling, but this time her face was hers, soft and real. Daddy, she said, stay with us. Jack reached for her, but his hand passed through. The shapes laughed, and the city vanished. He woke, gasping, his heart pounding. The room was dark, the lamp out. The laughter was real now, coming from below, loud and wild. It shook the floor, the walls, the air itself. He stumbled to the kitchen, his flashlight shaking in his hand. The cellar door was still locked, but scratches marked the wood, fresh and deep, like something had tried to claw through. Jack backed away, his breath short. The laughter stopped, replaced by a low hum. Like a machine waking up, he ran to the study and grabbed the black stone from the carved box. It was warmer now, almost hot, its faint glow pulsing. When he held it, the dream flashed in his mind again, the city, the stars, Lily's face. He dropped the stone, and it rolled across the floor, stopping by the wall. The laughter started again, softer, like it was pleased. Jack wrote in his notebook, his hand shaking. They know me. They show me things. I want to go down, but I'm scared. What if they're telling the truth? What if they can give me what I want? The next day, Jack found more in the house. In a closet, he discovered a box of old photos. Some showed Elias as a young man, smiling with a woman who must have been his wife. Others were stranger blurry images of the woods, with shapes in the shadows that looked like the creatures from his dreams. One photo showed the trapdoor, open, with light pouring out. Elias stood beside it, his face pale, his eyes wide. Jack's dreams grew stronger each night. The city was always there, closer, more real. The shapes spoke more, telling him stories of the stars, of worlds they'd seen. They said they were trapped, lonely, waiting for someone to free them. You're special, Jack, they whispered. You can open the door. He started talking to them, even when awake. He'd sit by the cellar door, whispering about Lily, about his life, his pain. The laughter answered, sometimes sad, sometimes happy. It felt like they understood him, like they cared. One night, the dream changed. The city was gone, replaced by a void-endless black, with stars that screamed. The shapes were bigger, their eyes angry, their mouths wide. Open the door, they said, their voices sharp, or we take you. Jack woke screaming, his shirt soaked with sweat. He ran to the cellar and unlocked the door. The trapdoor glowed, brighter, the laughter louder. He touched the chain, his fingers trembling. The voices sang, promising everything: Lily, peace, knowledge. But Elias's words echoed in his head. They lie. Jack stepped back, locked the door, and ran to his room. The laughter followed, angry now, shaking the house. He hid under the blanket, like a kid scared of the dark, but the dark was inside him now, and it was laughing. Chapter 5. The Lost Book of Whispers. Jack Harlan's world was shrinking. Shadowbrook Manor, with its sagging walls and creaking floors, felt like a cage that tightened each day. The laughter from below, those eerie, bubbling giggles, had woven itself into his every thought, a song he couldn't escape. He was 35, a man who once taught kids to write simple stories, but now he felt like he was living in one, a dark tale with no end. His brown hair was matted with sweat, his eyes sunken from nights spent fighting sleep. The dreams were worse than the laughter, showing him cities of light and bone, stars that screamed, and faces that weren't human but knew his name. He sat in the kitchen, the brass key with its strange carvings on the table beside a cold cup of tea. The air smelled of dust and something sour, like old fruit left to rot. The cellar door, locked and barred with a heavy table, seemed to pulse in the corner of his eye, as if it breathed. Jack hadn't gone near it since last night, when the laughter turned angry, shaking the house until the windows rattled. He'd locked the trapdoor again, but the voices still called, whispering through the floorboards. Jack, open. Wait. He rubbed his temples, trying to focus. The dreams were getting stronger, more real. Last night, he'd seen Lily again, his daughter, standing in that alien city of shifting towers. Her smile was hers, but her eyes were theirs, too many, too bright, like the glowing eyes he'd seen below the trapdoor. The forgotten ones, the book called them, creatures from beyond the stars, sealed away but never silent. Jack wanted to believe it was all in his head, but the scratches on the cellar door, the glowing stone, the journal from his great uncle, Elias, they were real, too real. Jack stood, his legs weak, and grabbed Elias's journal from the counter. He'd read it so many times the pages were starting to tear. Elias's words were a warning. They lie. They use your pain. Don't dream. But Jack was dreaming, and the dreams felt like truth. He needed more answers, something to explain what was happening before he lost himself completely. He decided to search the house again, hoping to find anything Elias left behind. The manor was a maze of rooms, each one dustier and stranger than the last. He started in the library, a small room off the main hall, with shelves that reached the ceiling. The air was thick, smelling of old paper and mold. Books lined the walls, their spines cracked and faded. Most were boring old novels, history texts, but some were odd, with titles in languages Jack didn't know, letters that twisted like the carvings on the key. He pulled down a book that caught his eye. Its cover, black leather with no title, just a star-shaped mark burned into it. The pages were thin, almost like tissue, and the words were handwritten in ink that shimmered faintly. The title page read, "The Book of Whispers." Jack's heart thudded. He sat at a dusty desk and opened it, the pages crackling under his fingers. The book wasn't like Elias's journal. It wasn't a story or a diary, it was a guide, or maybe a warning. The words spoke of the forgotten ones, but in more detail than the other book. They were ancient, older than the earth, born in the void between stars. They came in a meteor, crashing into the land that would become Willow Creek. The people who lived then, long before towns or cities, saw their power and feared it. They built a prison deep underground, sealing the creatures with stone and symbols. But the forgotten ones weren't dead. They slept, and their voices reached out through laughter, through dreams, seeking someone to break the seal. Jack's hands shook as he read. The book described the laughter. It finds your heart, your hurts. It sings of what you want most. It lies to make you listen. There were drawings, two blobs of shadow with eyes and mouths, cities that floated in space, stars that pulsed like hearts. One page showed a trapdoor, like the one in the cellar, with chains that glowed. Below it, words in red ink. The key opens the way. The heart opens the door. Jack slammed the book shut. His breath was short, his chest tight. The key, he'd found it under the floorboards, in a box with Elias's note. Did Elias know about this book? Did he read it and still stay? Jack's mind raced. He thought of the stone in the study, the one that glowed and burned when he touched it. The marbles under the floor, their swirls moving like living things. The house was full of secrets, and they all led to the trapdoor. He took the book and went to the study, where the stone still sat in its carved box. The room was dark, the curtains drawn, and the air felt heavy, like before a storm. Jack opened the box and stared at the stone. It was warmer now, its glow brighter, pulsing in time with his heartbeat. He didn't touch it, afraid of the images it brought, flashes of the dream city, the voices promising Lily, promising peace. The laughter started again, soft at first, like a child giggling in another room. It grew, spreading through the walls, the floor, the air. Jack clutched the book and listened. The voices were clearer now, forming words. Read. No. Come to us. He opened the book of whispers again, his hands trembling. A new page caught his eye, one he hadn't noticed before. The words were fresh, like they'd been written yesterday. Jack Harlan, you are the key. The stars wait for you. He dropped the book, stumbling back, his name, in a book older than the house, older than Elias. How? The laughter swelled, loud and wild, shaking the shelves. Books fell, their pages fluttering like wings. Jack ran to the kitchen, his flashlight beam dancing across the walls. The cellar door was still locked, but the table he'd pushed against it was moved, just an inch, like something had pushed from the other side. He grabbed his phone and called Mrs. Grady, his only link to answers. The line crackled, her voice faint. Jack, you still there? She said, sounding tired. I found a book, he said, his voice shaking. The Book of Whispers. It knows my name. What is this place? A long pause. Elias found that book, too, she said. He said it changed, wrote things just for him. It's them, Jack, the things below. They write in it, talk through it, burn it, boy, burn it and leave. I can't, Jack said. It's part of me now. Then you're lost, she said, and the line went dead. Jack stood in the kitchen, the laughter roaring now. It wasn't just below, it was everywhere, in the walls, the ceiling, his head. He ran to the living room and checked the loose floorboard. The hole was still there, deeper than before, with faint light at the bottom. He shone his flashlight, and something moved, shiny, wet, with eyes that blinked and laughed. He slammed the board down and ran to his room, locking the door. The laughter followed, soft and teasing, like it knew he couldn't escape. He opened the Book of Whispers again, desperate for answers. A new page appeared, the ink still wet. Open the door. Jack, see the stars, be free. He threw the book against the wall. The laughter turned sad, like a child crying. Jack's eyes stung. He thought of Lily, her laugh, her small hand in his. The voices knew. They used her, used his pain. But part of him wanted to believe them, wanted to see her, even if it was a lie. That night, the dreams came again. The city was closer, its towers of light and bone reaching for him. The forgotten ones floated around him, their eyes sparkling, their voices singing. You're home, they said. Open the door. Jack saw Lily, but this time she didn't smile. Her face was pale, her eyes empty. Don't, she whispered, and then she was gone. He woke, gasping, the room dark. The laughter was loud, shaking the bed. Jack grabbed the key and ran to the cellar. The trapdoor glowed, brighter than ever, the chains rattling like they were alive. He knelt, the key in his hand, the voices begging. Now, Jack, now. He didn't open it, he couldn't, but he sat there, listening, until the sun rose. The laughter faded, but it left something behind, a piece of him, tied to the stars, to the things below. He was theirs now, and he knew it. Chapter 6. Shadows that smiled. Jack Harlan was slipping. Shadowbrook Manor had become a living thing, its walls breathing, its floors humming with the laughter that never stopped. The air was thick with the scent of dust and something metallic, like blood left to dry. Jack, 35, and hollowed out by sleepless nights, sat on the floor of the living room, his back against the cold fireplace. His hands clutched the Book of Whispers, its pages open to words that seemed to writhe under his gaze. The book knew his name, knew his pain, and it wasn't alone. The laughter from below, those eerie, childlike giggles, knew him too. They called to him, day and night, weaving through his thoughts like threads of a spider's web. His brown hair was greasy, his eyes bloodshot. He hadn't shaved in days, and his clothes smelled of sweat. The house was winning, pulling him deeper, into its secrets. The brass key, carved with stars and swirls, sat in his pocket, heavy as a stone. He hadn't gone near the cellar since last night, when the trapdoor glowed and the chains rattled like they wanted to break free. But the laughter didn't need him to open the door anymore. It was everywhere, in the walls, the air, his dreams. The dreams were the worst. Each night, they grew sharper, more real than the waking world. He saw the city of light and bone, its towers shifting like liquid under a sky of screaming stars. The forgotten ones, those ancient things from beyond, floated around him, their eyes sparkling, their mouths laughing. They showed him wonders worlds where time folded, where colors sang, where he could be whole again. But last night, the dream had changed. Lily, his daughter, stood in the city, her face pale, her eyes hollow. "Don't," she'd whispered, before the laughter swallowed her. Jack woke screaming, his heart pounding so hard he thought it would burst. Now, in the dim morning light, Jack tried to hold on to reality. The house creaked around him, the wind outside howling through the dead trees. He opened the Book of Whispers again, hoping for answers. The pages were different every time he looked, the words shifting like sand. Today, they read, "Jack, the shadows smile for you. They see your heart. Open the door and join the dance." He slammed the book shut, his breath ragged. The laughter started again, soft and teasing, coming from the floor beneath him. It wasn't just sound, it was a feeling, warm and cold at once, pulling at him like a tide. He stood, his legs shaky, and paced the room. The furniture, still covered in dusty sheets, looked like hunched figures watching him. The shadows in the corners seemed to move, stretching toward him, their edges curling like smiles. Jack grabbed his flashlight and decided to search the house again. He couldn't sit still, couldn't let the laughter win. He needed something, anything, to explain what was happening. He started in the upstairs hall, where the walls were lined with faded paintings. One caught his eye, half hidden behind a curtain. It showed a group of people, their faces pale, their eyes wide, standing around a hole in the ground. Above them, the sky was black, filled with stars that looked alive. The hole glowed, and shadows poured from it, their shapes twisted, smiling. Jack's stomach churned. He tore the curtain down, letting light flood the painting. The shadows in the image seemed to shift, their smiles growing wider. He backed away, his flashlight shaking. The laughter grew louder, coming from the walls now, like a crowd of children hiding just out of sight. He ran to the attic, hoping to find more of Ilias's things. The stairs groaned under his weight, and the air was thick with dust and the smell of old wood. The attic was a maze of crates and trunks, their contents spilling out like secrets. Jack found a box of papers, yellowed and brittle. They were letters, written in Ilias's shaky hand, addressed to no one. They smile in the shadows. One said, "They watch me when I sleep. I lock the door, but they're already here." Another letter was stranger. "The shadows move on their own. They dance when I'm not looking. I saw one in the mirror, wearing my face. It laughed, and I laughed with it. Jack, if you're reading this, burn the house." Jack's hands trembled. He stuffed the letters into his pocket and kept searching. In a corner, under a pile of old clothes, he found a mirror, its frame carved with the same star and swirl patterns as the key. The glass was cloudy, but when Jack looked into it, his reflection was wrong. His face was there, but his eyes were too many, too bright, like the things below. He blinked, and the reflection smiled a wide, unnatural grin that wasn't his. He dropped the mirror, and it cracked on the floor. The laughter roared, shaking the attic. Dust fell like rain, and the shadows in the corners stretched, their edges curling like mouths. Jack ran downstairs, his heart pounding. The house felt alive now, its walls pulsing, its floors trembling. The laughter was everywhere, loud and wild, singing his name. He stumbled into the kitchen and checked the cellar door. The table was still against it, but the scratches were deeper, longer, like something had clawed harder. The laughter came from below, but also from above, behind, inside. Jack grabbed his phone and called Mrs. Grady, his voice shaking. "Jack," she answered, her voice sharp. "You still in that cursed place?" "The shadows," he said, gasping. "They move, they smile. I found a mirror, and it wasn't me." Double quotes. Mrs. Grady's voice was low. "Elias saw them too," said the shadows. "We're theirs, the forgotten ones. They get in your eyes, your mind. Get out, Jack." "Now I can't," he whispered. "They know me. They show me Lily. They lie." She snapped. "They'll use anything to get you to open that door. Burn the book, burn the key, burn the house." The line went dead. Jack stood in the kitchen, the laughter swelling around him. It was sad now, like a child crying for a lost friend. He thought of Lily, her small hand in his, her laugh when they played in the park. The voices knew his pain, used it, but part of him wanted to believe them, wanted to see her, even if it was a trick. That night, Jack didn't fight sleep. The dreams came fast, pulling him into the city of light and bone. The stars above screamed, their light burning his eyes. The forgotten ones were there, their shapes bigger, their eyes angrier. "Open the door," they said, their voices sharp, "or we come for you." The shadows around them smiled, their edges curling like lips, stretching toward him. Jack saw Lily again, but she was different. Her face was a shadow, her eyes glowing, her mouth laughing with the others. "Daddy," she said, but it wasn't her voice, it was theirs. He reached for her, but the shadows swallowed her, and the city burned, its towers collapsing into a void. He woke, screaming, the room dark. The laughter was real, shaking the house. The walls creaked, the floor trembled. Jack ran to the cellar, the key in his hand. The trapdoor glowed, brighter than ever, the chains rattling like they were alive. The voices sang, begging, promising Jack home stars. He knelt, his fingers on the chain. The laughter was warm now, welcoming, like a family calling him back. But Lily's voice from the dream echoed, "Don't." Jack pulled his hand back, his heart racing. He locked the door and ran to the living room, where the Book of Whispers lay open. New words had appeared, the shadows smile. "They're us. Open the door, Jack, or we take you." He threw the book into the fireplace and lit a match. The pages burned, the words curling into ash. But the laughter didn't stop. It grew louder, angrier, shaking the house until the windows cracked. The shadows in the room stretched, their edges smiling. Moving closer, Jack sat on the floor, his back against the wall, the key in his hand. The laughter was inside him now, part of his blood, his breath. He didn't know how much longer he could fight it. The shadows watched, and they smiled. Chapter 7. The Hall to Nowhere. Jack Harlan was unraveling. Shadowbrook Manor was no longer just a house, it was a living thing. Its walls pulsing with secrets, its floors trembling with laughter that clawed at his mind. The air was thick, heavy, with the scent of damp wood and something sharp, like rusted iron. Jack, 35 and worn thin, sat on the living room floor, his back pressed against the cold fireplace. His hands gripped the brass key, its star and swirl carvings biting into his palm. The laughter from below, the eerie, childlike giggles of the forgotten ones, had become his shadow, following him everywhere, even into silence. It wasn't just sound anymore. It was a weight, a pull, a voice in his blood. His eyes, red and sunken from sleepless nights, darted to the corners of the room. The shadows moved when he wasn't looking, curling like smoke, smiling with edges that weren't edges. Last night, he'd burned the Book of Whispers in the fireplace, hoping to stop the words that knew his name. But the laughter only grew louder, angrier, shaking the house until the windows cracked. The shadows had watched, their grins widening, and Jack felt them inside him, whispering through the cracks in his thoughts. He hadn't slept since the dreams turned dark. The city of light and bone, with its screaming stars and shifting towers, haunted him. The forgotten ones, those ancient things from beyond, showed him wonders, worlds where pain didn't exist, where he could see Lily again, but their promises always ended in darkness. Last night's dream was the worst. Lily stood in the void, her face a shadow, her eyes glowing with too many lights. "Don't," she'd said, but her voice was theirs, sharp and hungry. The shadows had reached for him, their smiles tearing the dream apart, and he woke, gasping. The laughter real and roaring. Now, in the pale morning light, Jack tried to hold on to himself. The house creaked, the wind outside howling through the dead trees like a warning. He stood, his legs shaky, and checked the cellar door. It was still locked, the table pushed against it, but the scratches were deeper, jagged, like something had clawed with purpose. The laughter was quiet for now, but he knew it was waiting, watching. Jack needed answers. He couldn't trust the dreams, the shadows, or even his own eyes anymore. He decided to search the house again, hoping Ilias left something, anything to explain how to fight this. He grabbed his flashlight and headed to the basement. Not the cellar with the trapdoor, but a smaller room he'd found behind a locked door in the hall. The key from the box fit the lock, and the door opened with a groan. The basement was cold, the air thick with the smell of earth and decay. Stone walls glistened with damp, and the floor was dirt, soft under his boots. His flashlight beam swept across shelves of jars, their contents cloudy and still. In the center was a hole, not a trapdoor but a raw, jagged opening in the ground, like something had been torn out. It was small, barely wide enough for a man to crawl through, but it went deep, too deep for his light to reach the bottom. Jack knelt, his heart pounding. The laughter started again, soft and distant, coming from the hole. It wasn't like the trapdoor's laughter. This was different, slower, like a lullaby. He leaned closer, and the air from the hole was cold, smelling of stars somehow, vast and empty. His flashlight flickered, and for a moment he saw something move, below a glint of wet, shiny skin, and eyes, too many eyes, blinking up at him. He stumbled back, dropping the flashlight. The laughter grew louder, teasing, like it knew he was scared. Jack ran upstairs, slamming the door behind him. The house shook, the laughter following, now coming from the walls, the ceiling, the floor. He ran to the study, where the black stone still sat in its carved box. It glowed brighter now, pulsing like a heart. When he touched it, images flashed in his mind, the city from his dreams. The stars screaming, Lily's face twisted into a smile that wasn't hers. Jack dropped the stone and grabbed Elias's journal from the desk. He flipped through it, desperate. A new page caught his eye, one he hadn't seen before. The ink was fresh, like it had just been written. The hole to nowhere leads to them. They made it, long ago, before the trapdoor. Don't look, Jack. They see you when you look. His hands shook. Elias knew about the hole. Had he found it, too? Jack's mind raced. The journal, the book, the stone, the key, all of them pointed to the forgotten ones. Trapped but reaching out, using laughter to pull him in. He thought of Mrs. Grady's warnings. They lie. They'll use anything to get you to open the door. He called her again, his phone trembling in his hand. Jack, she answered, her voice sharp with worry. You still in that house? There's a hole, he said, his voice breaking. In the basement. It's not the trapdoor. It's something else. They're in there. Mrs. Grady was quiet for a moment. Elias found a hole once, she said it was older than the house, older than the town. He said it led to them, the things from the stars. He covered it up, but they kept digging. Get out, Jack. They're close now. I can't, he said. They know me. They show me. Lily, they ain't your daughter, she snapped. They're using her face to trick you. Fill the hole, burn the house, do something. The call cut off, and the laughter roared, shaking the walls. Jack ran to the basement door, his flashlight in one hand, the key in the other. The hole was still there, its edges rough, like teeth. The laughter was louder now, coming from deep within, singing his name. Jack, come. He grabbed a shovel from the corner and started throwing dirt into the hole, his arms burning with effort. The laughter turned angry, the air growing colder. Shadows moved in the corners, their edges curling like smiles. Jack kept shoveling, but the dirt seemed to vanish, swallowed by the hole. He stopped, panting, and shone his flashlight down. The eyes were closer now, sparkling. Watching, he ran upstairs, locking the door behind him. The laughter followed, loud and wild, shaking the house. The shadows were everywhere, stretching across the walls, their smiles growing. Jack hid in his room, the journal clutched to his chest. He wrote in his notebook, "The hole goes to them. They are closer now. I see them in the shadows, smiling. I want to go down, but I'm scared." That night, the dreams came again. The city was gone, replaced by a voidantless black, with stars that bled light. The forgotten ones were there, their shapes huge, their eyes burning. "The hole is ours," they said. "You opened it. Come to us." The shadows smiled, their mouths opening wide, swallowing the stars. Jack saw Lily, her face a shadow, her eyes theirs. "Daddy," she said, "join us." He woke, screaming, the room shaking. The laughter was real, coming from everywhere. Jack ran to the basement, the key in his hand. The hole was bigger now, its edges glowing faintly. The laughter was a song, pulling him closer. He knelt, his fingers on the edge, the voices promising. Home, stars, forever. He didn't go in, not yet, but he sat there, listening, as the shadows smiled around him. The hall to nowhere was calling, and Jack wasn't sure he could say no. Chapter 8. Voices from Deep Space. Jack Harlan was no longer himself. Shadowbrook Manor had woven itself into his soul, its walls alive with whispers, its floors trembling with laughter that clawed at his mind. The air was heavy, thick with the scent of damp earth and something sharp, like ozone after a storm. Jack, 35 and frayed to the bone, sat in the kitchen, his hands wrapped around the brass key, its Staran's world carvings warm against his skin. His eyes, bloodshot and hollow, stared at the cellar door, still locked, still scratched with claw marks that seemed to grow deeper each day. The laughter of the forgotten ones, those ancient starborn things, had become his heartbeat, a constant hum that filled the silence and drowned his thoughts. He hadn't slept in days, not properly. The dreams were too strong, too real, pulling him into a void where stars screamed and cities of light and bone pulsed with alien life. Last night, the dream had been different, darker, sharper. He'd stood in a black expanse, the ground like glass, the sky a whirl of colors no human should see. The forgotten ones were there, their shapes vast, their eyes like burning coals, their mouths laughing in voices that echoed inside his skull. They didn't just call his name anymore. They spoke in words that felt like knives. Jack, you are ours. The hole is open. Come. He'd seen Lily, his daughter, her face pale, her eyes glowing with their light. Daddy, she'd said, but her voice was a chorus, 1,000 voices from deep space, and the stars had bled behind her. Now, in the dim light of morning, Jack tried to hold on to what was left of him. The house creaked, the wind outside rattling, the windows like bones. The hole in the basement, the one he'd found yesterday, raw and jagged, leading to nowhere, haunted him. He'd tried to fill it with dirt, but the earth vanished, swallowed by the darkness. The laughter from the hall was different from the trapdoors, slower, deeper, like a song from a place no one could name. It promised things, knowledge, peace, Lily, but Jack knew promises could lie. He stood, his legs weak, and grabbed Ilias's journal from the table. The pages were worn, the ink smudged from his fingers. Ilias's words were a lifeline, a warning from a man who'd fought the same fight. One entry, written in a shaking hand, stood out. They speak from the stars. Their voices come through the hole, not just the trapdoor. It's older, deeper, a wound in the earth. I heard them in my head, saw their worlds. They want me to jump. Jack, if you find the hole, cover it. Run. Jack's stomach twisted. Elias had known about the hole to nowhere, had heard the same voices, but Elias stayed, and now he was gone. Jack clutched the journal and headed to the basement, his flashlight shaking in his hand. The air was cold, the smell of dirt and metal, stronger now. The hole was there, its edges glowing faintly, like starlight trapped in stone. The laughter came from deep within, a low hum that vibrated in his chest. He knelt, his flashlight beams swallowed by the darkness. The voices were clearer now, not just laughter but words, layered and strange, like a radio picking up signals from another world. Jack, see us, know us. He leaned closer, and the air from the hole was freezing, smelling of vast, empty spaces. Something moved below, a glint of wet, shiny flesh, and eyes, countless eyes, sparkling like a galaxy dot. Jack stumbled back, his heart racing. The laughter grew louder, wrapping around him like a net. He ran upstairs, slamming the door, but the voices followed, slipping through the walls, the floor, his mind. They weren't just below anymore, they were everywhere, singing from deep space, calling him to the hole. He grabbed his phone and called Mrs. Grady, the old woman from Willow Creek who knew Ilias's secrets. The line crackled, her voice faint. Jack, she said, her tone sharp with fear. You still in that house? There's a hole, he said, his voice breaking. In the basement. It's not the trapdoor. They talk through it. From somewhere else, they know my name. Mrs. Grady's breath hitched. Elias found that hole years ago. Said it was their first door, before the trapdoor was built. It goes deeper, to where they really are. He tried to seal it, but they kept it open. Jack, you gotta leave. They're in your head now. I can't, he said, his voice barely a whisper. They show me Lily. They say I can have her back. They're lying, she shouted. They'll say anything to get you to jump. Fill the hole, burn the house, do something. The call cut off, and the laughter roared, shaking the walls. Jack ran to the living room, where the shadows curled in the corners, their edges smiling. He grabbed Ilias's journal and flipped to a new page, one he hadn't seen before. The ink was fresh, like it had been written moments ago. The voices come from the stars. They're not trapped, they're waiting. The hole is their gate. Jack, don't listen. They'll take you. Jack's hands shook. He ran to the basement, shovel in hand, determined to fill the hole. The laughter was deafening now, a chorus of voices from places no human could know. He threw dirt into the hole, but it vanished, sucked into the dark. The voices sang louder, angrier. "Jack, you can't stop us." He dropped the shovel and ran upstairs, locking the door. The house shook, the shadows stretching across the walls, their smiles wide and hungry. Jack hid in his room, the journal clutched to his chest. He wrote in his notebook, "The voices are from space. They're not just below, they're everywhere. I see Lily, but it's not her. I want to go to the hall, but I'm scared." That night, the dreams came stronger. He was in the void, the stars burning, their light cutting into him. The forgotten ones were huge, their shapes filling the sky, their eyes like suns. "The hall is ours," they said, their voices a storm. "Jump, Jack, be with us." Lily was there, her face a shadow, her eyes theirs. "Daddy," she said, "come home." He woke, screaming, the room shaking. The laughter was real, coming from the walls, the floor, the air. Jack ran to the basement, the key in his hand. The hall was bigger now, its edges pulsing with light. The voices were a song, pulling him closer. He knelt, his fingers on the edge, the laughter promising stars home, forever. He didn't jump, not yet, but he sat there, listening, as the shadows smiled and the voices sang from deep space. The hall to nowhere was open, and Jack was running out of reasons to stay away. Chapter 9. The mad dance. Jack Harlan was a ghost in his own skin. Shadowbrook Manor had claimed him, its walls throbbing with a pulse that matched the laughter in his head. The air was thick, sour with the smell of wet stone and something electric, like a storm trapped indoors. Jack, 35 and crumbling, sat cross-legged on the living room floor, the brass key with its star-and-swirled carvings clutched in his trembling hands. His eyes, red-rimmed and hollow, stared at nothing. But he saw everything, the shadows that curled like smiles, the hole in the basement that led to nowhere, the dreams that burned with alien light, the laughter of the forgotten ones. Those starborn things was no longer just sound. It was a tide, pulling him under, drowning him in its song. He hadn't slept in days, not truly. The dreams were relentless, dragging him into a void where stars screamed and cities of light and bone danced in endless spirals. Last night's dream was a fever, wild and sharp. He stood on a plane of black glass, the sky a chaos of colors that bled into each other. The forgotten ones were there, their shapes vast, their eyes like dying suns, their mouths laughing in a chorus that shook his bones. They didn't just call him, they moved, twirling and spinning in a dance that made his head spin. "Join us," they sang, their voices a storm from deep space. "Dance with the stars." Lily was there, her small form swaying with them, her eyes glowing, her smile theirs. "Daddy, dance," she said, but her voice was 1,000 voices, hungry and old. Now, in the grey light of morning, Jack tried to claw his way back to himself. The house groaned, its floors creaking like old bones, the wind outside rattling the windows like a warning. The hole in the basement, the jagged tear he'd found, older than the trapdoor, haunted him. He'd tried to fill it, but the dirt vanished, swallowed by the dark. The laughter from the hole was different, deeper, like a chant from a place beyond time. It promised knowledge, reunion, eternity, but Jack knew promises could break. He stood, his body aching, and grabbed Ilias's journal from the table. The pages were tattered, the ink smudged from his sweaty fingers. Ilias's words were a fading lifeline. "The hole is their gate. They dance in my dreams, calling me to join. I saw them move, like shadows with purpose. Jack, don't look, they'll pull you in." Jack's heart thudded. Elias had seen the dance, too, had felt its pull, but Elias was gone, and Jack was alone with the laughter. He needed to understand, to fight, or at least to know what he was fighting. He headed to the attic, his flashlight cutting through the dusty air. The attic was a maze of crates and shadows, the air heavy with the smell of mold and old cloth. He found a trunk he hadn't opened before, its lock rusted but loose. Inside were papers, drawings, and a small wooden figure, carved to look like a person dancing, its arms raised, its face a swirl of stars. The drawings were worse sketches of shapes twirling in a void, their eyes glowing, their mouths open in silent laughs. One sketch showed the hole in the basement, its edges alive with light, and figures dancing around it, their forms half human, half shadow. Jack's hands shook as he stuffed the drawings into his pocket. The laughter started again, soft at first, like a child's giggle, but it grew, a wild rhythm that pulsed through the house. It wasn't just sound, it was movement, a beat that made his feet twitch, his body sway. He stumbled downstairs, the laughter louder, the shadows in the corners stretching, their edges curling like dancers' arms. Dot in the kitchen. The cellar door was still locked, but the scratches were fresh, deep, like claws had torn at the wood. The laughter came from the basement now, not the trap door but the hole, its rhythm fast and mad, like a waltz from another world. Jack grabbed his phone and called Mrs. Grady, his voice shaking. "Jack," she answered, her voice sharp with dread. "You still there?" "They're dancing," he said, his words tumbling out. "In the hole, in my dreams. They want me to join. I found drawings. Elias saw it too." Mrs. Grady's voice was low, urgent. "Elias said they danced to pull him in, said it was their way, their ritual. The hole's older than the house, older than us. They move through it, from the stars. Jack, you gotta block it. Leave, now." "I can't," he whispered. "They show me Lily. They say I can dance with her." "They ain't her," she snapped. "They'll take you, body and soul. Fill the hole, burn the house, do something." The call cut off, and the laughter roared, a wild spinning song that shook the walls. Jack ran to the basement, his flashlight trembling. The hole was bigger now, its edges glowing with a sickly light. The laughter was a beat, a rhythm that pulled at his feet, his hands, his heart. He saw shadows in the hole, moving, twirling, their eyes sparkling like stars. "Dance," they sang. "Join us, Jack." He grabbed the shovel and threw dirt into the hole, his arms burning. The dirt vanished, sucked into the dark, and the laughter grew wilder, the shadows dancing faster. Jack's body swayed, caught in the rhythm, his feet moving without his will. He dropped the shovel and stumbled back, his heart pounding. The shadows were everywhere, stretching across the walls, their smiles wide, their arms reaching. He ran, upstairs, locking the door, but the laughter followed, its beat in his blood. He hid in his room, the journal open in his lap. A new page had appeared, the ink wet. "The dance is ours. The stars move with us. Jack, join the dance, or we take you." He wrote in his notebook, "They're in me. The rhythm won't stop. I see Lily dancing, but it's not her. I want to go, but I'm scared." That night, the dreams were a storm. He was in the void, the stars spinning, their light a blade. The forgotten ones danced, their shapes filling the sky, their eyes burning. "Dance," they sang, their voices a hurricane. "Be ours." Lily was there twirling, her face a shadow, her eyes theirs. "Daddy, dance," she said, and the rhythm pulled him, his body moving, spinning, falling. He woke, gasping, the room shaking. The laughter was real, a mad dance that rattled the house. Jack ran to the basement, the key in his hand. The hole glowed, its rhythm deafening, the shadows dancing inside. He knelt, his body swaying, the voices singing. "Now, Jack, dance with us." He didn't jump, not yet, but he moved, his feet stepping to the beat, as the shadows danced and the stars sang. The hole to nowhere was open, and Jack was dancing with it. Chapter 10. Binding the laugh. Jack Harlan was a shadow of himself, caught in the grip of Shadowbrook Manor, where the walls pulsed with a life of their own, and the air hung heavy with the scent of damp earth and something sharp, like burnt wires. The laughter of the forgotten ones, those ancient starborn entities, had become his pulse, a relentless rhythm that thrummed in his veins. Jack, 35 and worn to a thread, sat in the living room, his hands clutching the brass key, its stare-and-swirl carvings now glowing faintly, warm against his skin. His eyes, bloodshot and sunken, darted to the corners where shadows curled, their edges twisting like silent laughs. The house was no longer a place, it was a presence, alive and hungry, and Jack was its prey. The laughter had changed. It wasn't just the playful giggles or the sad cries he'd heard before. It was a force now, a wild, cosmic chant that shook the floors and rattled the windows. The hole in the basement, the jagged tear to nowhere called, louder than the trapdoor ever, had its rhythm pulling at him like a tide. Jack hadn't slept in days, not since the dreams became a dance. A mad whirl of stars and shadows, where the forgotten ones spun, their eyes burning, their voices commanding. "Dance, Jack, join us." Lily, his daughter, was always there, her face a mask of their light, her voice a chorus. Daddy, come. He'd fought it, or tried to. He'd burned the book of whispers, filled the hole with dirt that vanished, locked every door, but the laughter was inside him now, in his breath, his bones, his dreams. Last night's dream was a storm void of bleeding stars, a city of light and bone that pulsed with alien life. The forgotten ones danced, their shapes filling the sky, their mouths laughing in a rhythm that made his body move against his will. Lily twirled with them, her eyes theirs, her smile a lie. Dance, she said, and Jack had woken screaming, his feet still twitching to the beat. Now, in the dim light of morning, Jack sat with Ilias's journal, its pages crumbling under his fingers. The words were a fading anchor. They dance, to bind you, their rhythm is a chain. I tried to seal the hole, but they're too strong. Jack, don't dance, find the binding. Jack's heart pounded. Binding. Elias had mentioned it before, way too quiet the laughter, to trap the forgotten ones again, but how? The journal was vague, its pages ending in scrawled warnings. The stars laugh. Don't let them take you. Jack stood, his legs trembling, and decided to search the house one last time. He needed something, a clue, a tool, anything, to fight back. The laughter was soft now, a low hum, like it was waiting. He grabbed his flashlight and headed to the study, where the black stone still sat in its carved box, glowing brighter, pulsing faster. When he touched it, images flashed, stars screaming, shadows dancing, Lily's face twisted into theirs. He dropped it, his hand burning, and backed away. The laughter grew, a slow rhythm, like a heartbeat from deep space. Jack searched the shelves, pulling down books, papers, anything. He found a small notebook, hidden behind a row of dusty novels. Its cover was plain, but the pages were filled with Elias's writing, different from the journal, clearer, more desperate. The binding is old, it read. The first people used symbols, carved in stone, to seal them. The hole is their gate, but the trapdoor is ours. Find the symbols, speak their names, bind them. Jack's breath caught. Symbols, he thought of the carvings on the key, the box, the wooden figure in the attic. He ran upstairs, the laughter following, its rhythm, quickening. In the attic, he found the figure again, the dancing person with a face of stars. Its base had markings, faint but clear, like the ones on the key. He traced them with his finger, and the laughter paused, just for a moment, like a caught breath. He took the figure and ran to the basement, his flashlight shaking. The hole to nowhere was bigger now, its edges glowing with a sickly light that pulsed in time with the laughter. The shadows danced inside, their forms twisting, their eyes sparkling. Jack knelt, the figure in one hand, the key in the other. The notebook said to speak the symbols' names, but what were they? He stared at the carvings, his mind racing. The laughter grew louder, wilder, a chant that pulled at his feet, urging him to dance. He tried to speak, his voice shaky. Stop, he said, tracing the symbols. The laughter faltered, the shadows slowing. He tried again, louder, making up sounds for the shapes. Zara, Thou, Qui. The words felt strange, like they came from somewhere else. The laughter dimmed, the shadows shrinking, their smiles fading. Jack's heart lifted. It was working. But then the laughter roared back, angrier, shaking the house. The hole glowed brighter, the shadows surging, their eyes burning. You can't bind us, they sang, their voices a storm. Dance, Jack, jump. The rhythm was overwhelming, his body swaying, his feet moving. He clutched the figure, shouting the words louder, his voice cracking. The shadows screamed, the laughter twisting into a wail. Jack stumbled back, the key falling from his hand. The hole pulsed, its light blinding. He ran upstairs, locking the door, but the laughter followed, its rhythm in his blood. He called Mrs. Grady, his voice barely a whisper. Jack, she answered, her voice sharp. What now? I found a way, he said. Symbols, to bind them. It worked, but only for a moment. They're stronger. Mrs. Grady was quiet. Elias tried that, she said. Found symbols in the old stones. Said they held them back, but not for long. You gotta carve them, Jack. On the hole, on the trap door, and you gotta mean it. How? He asked, desperate. Your heart, she said. They use your pain, you gotta use it back. Carve the symbols and say no. The call cut off, and the laughter roared, a mad dance that shook the walls. Jack ran to the kitchen, grabbing a knife. He went to the basement. his hands shaking. The hole was alive, its edges writhing, the shadows dancing inside. He carved the symbols from the figure into the stone around the hole, his hands bleeding, his voice shouting the strange words, Zara, Thal, Qui. The laughter stopped, the shadows froze, their eyes dimming, the hole darkened, its light fading. Jack fell to his knees, gasping. It worked. For now. But the shadows were still there, watching, waiting. He wrote in his notebook, I bound them, but they're not gone. The dance is in me. I see Lily, but it's their lie. I'm scared I'll join them. That night, the dreams came again. The void was quieter, the stars dim, but the forgotten ones were there, their eyes angry, their mouths silent. Lily stood still, her face hers, but wrong. You can't stop us, she said, and the shadows began to dance again. Jack woke, the house silent, but the rhythm lingered in his chest. He knew the binding wouldn't last. The hole was still open, and the laughter was waiting. Chapter 11. Fury. From below Jack Harlan was a husk, hollowed out by Shadowbrook Manor's relentless grip. The house was no longer just wood and stone. It was a beast, its walls throbbing with a pulse that matched the laughter in his head. The air was thick, heavy with the stench of wet earth, and something acrid, like burnt stars. Jack, 35 and shattered, sat in the kitchen, his bloodied hands clutching the brass key, its star and swirl carvings glowing faintly, searing his skin. His eyes sunken and wild, fixed on the cellar door, where scratches deep, jagged, alive crawled across the wood-like veins. The laughter of the forgotten ones, those ancient things from beyond the stars, was a storm now, a furious roar that shook the house and clawed at his soul. He hadn't slept in days, not since he tried to bind them. The symbols he'd carved. Around the hall to nowhere's Arathal Qui had quieted the laughter for a moment, dimmed the shadows' smiles. But it didn't last. The forgotten ones were angry, their voices no longer teasing or sad but raging, a cosmic fury that rattled the windows and cracked the walls. Jack's dreams were battlegrounds, filled with a void of bleeding stars, and a city of light and bone that burned with their wrath. Last night, the dream had been a scream. The forgotten ones towered over him, their eyes like furnaces, their mouths howling. You cannot bind us, Jack. You are ours. Lily was there, her face a shadow, her eyes theirs, her voice a snarl. You failed, Daddy. Now, in the dim morning light, Jack tried to hold on to what was left of his mind. The house groaned, its floors trembling, the air humming with the laughter's rage. The binding had worked, but only for a moment. And now the forgotten ones were pushing back, their fury leaking from the hole, the trapdoor, the very walls. Jack's hands, cut from carving the symbols, stung as he flipped through Ilias's journal, its pages frayed and smudged. A new entry, inked as if fresh, stopped him cold. The binding angers them. They'll tear through the earth to reach you. The hole is their heart. Jack, seal it, or they'll take everything. His heart pounded. Seal it. How? The symbols had slowed them, but the hole to nowhere was growing, its edges pulsing with sickly light. The laughter was no longer a sot, was a war cry, a demand for freedom. Jack thought of the trapdoor, the first gate he'd found, and the hole, older and deeper. Both led to them, but the hole felt alive, a wound in the world that bled their voices. He stood, his legs shaking, and grabbed a knife from the counter. He needed to try again, to carve more symbols, to fight their fury. He headed to the basement, his flashlight flickering as the laughter roared, shaking the stairs. The air was cold, thick with the smell of dirt, and something metallic, like blood from the stars. The hole was bigger now, its edges writhing, glowing with a light that hurt his eyes. Shadows danced inside, their forms twisting, their eyes burning. With rage, the laughter was deafening, a chorus of fury. Jack, you cannot stop us. Come. He knelt, his knife trembling, and carved the symbols against Sarah. Thal quinted the stone round the hole. His blood mixed with the dirt, the pain sharp but distant. He shouted the words, his voice cracking. Zara Thal, Qui. The laughter faltered, the shadows slowing, their eyes dimming. For a moment, the house was still, the air quiet. But then the fury returned, a scream that shook the ground. The hole pulsed, its light blinding, and the shadows surged, their smiles gone, their forms sharp and jagged. You defy us, they roared, their voices a storm in his head. We will take you. The house trembled, the walls cracking, the floor buckling. Jack stumbled back, the knife falling, his hands bleeding. He ran upstairs, locking the door, but the laughter followed, its fury shaking the house like an earthquake. The shadows were everywhere, no longer smiling but snarling, their edges like teeth. Jack grabbed his phone and called Mrs. Grady, his voice barely audible over the roar. "Jack," she answered, her voice tight with fear. "What's happening?" "They're angry," he gasped. "I tried to bind them, but they're breaking through. The Holit's alive. They want out." Mrs. Grady's voice was low, urgent. "Elias said the binding only holds if you believe. They use your doubt, your pain. You gotta seal the hole, Jack. Use the symbols. Use your heart. Say no to them." "How?" he shouted, the house shaking around him. "Your will," she said. Elias tried, but he was weak. "You gotta be stronger. Carve the symbols on the trap door, too. Seal both gates, and mean it." The call cut off. The laughter, a howl that cracked the windows. Jack ran to the cellar, his knife in hand. The trap door glowed, its chains rattling like bones. He carved the symbols into the wood, his blood dripping, his voice shouting, "Zara, Thal, Kwai." The laughter screamed, the shadows writhing. But the trapdoor dimmed, its glow fading. He ran to the basement, the hole pulsing, its fury shaking the ground. He carved again, his hands raw, his voice hoarse. "Zara, Thal, Kwai." The laughter wailed, the shadows shrinking, the hole darkening. Jack fell to his knees, gasping, his blood pooling in the dirt. The house was quiet, the fury gone, but the air was heavy, like it was waiting. He wrote in his notebook, "I bound them again, but they're still there. The hole is their heart, the trapdoor, their voice. I see Lily, but it's their lie. I'm scared they'll break through." That night, the dreams came again, but they were different, quiet, cold. The void was dark, the stars silent. The forgotten ones stood still, their eyes dull, their mouths closed. Lily was there, her face pale, her eyes hers but sad. "You're fighting," she said, her voice soft, "but they're stronger." Jack woke, the house silent, the laughter gone, but the shadows were still there, watching, waiting. He knew the binding wouldn't hold forever. The fury from below was building, and Jack was running out of time. Chapter 12. Quiet at last. Jack Harlan was barely human anymore. Shadowbrook Manor had devoured him, its walls a living cage, its air thick with the stench of wet stone and scorched stars. The laughter of the forgotten ones, those ancient, cosmic entities, had carved itself into his soul, a relentless chant that drowned his thoughts. Jack, 35 and broken, sat on the kitchen floor, his bloodied hands gripping the brass key, its Starin's World carvings pulsing like a dying heart. His eyes, hollow and wild, stared at the cellar door, where claw marks bled shadows. The house shook with the fury of the things below, their voices no longer laughing but roaring, a cosmic storm demanding freedom. He hadn't slept in days, not since the binding failed. The symbols Zara Thal, Kwai carved into the hole and trapdoor had slowed the forgotten ones, dimmed their laughter for a moment, but their rage had torn through, cracking the walls, buckling the floors. The dreams were relentless, a void of bleeding stars and a city of light and bone that burned with their wrath. Last night, the dream was final. The forgotten ones towered, their eyes like black holes, their mouths screaming, "You cannot hold us, Jack. We are free." Lily stood among them, her face a shadow, her eyes theirs, her voice a snarl. "You lost, Daddy." Now, in the faint dawn light, Jack clung to the last scraps of himself. The house groaned, its windows rattling, the air humming with the forgotten one's fury. The hole to nowhere in the basement pulsed, its edges alive with sickly light, and the trapdoor in the cellar rattled, its chains snapping one by one. Jack's hands, raw from carving symbols, trembled as he opened Ilias's journal. The final page was new, the ink wet. "The binding fails if your heart is theirs. They use your love, your pain. Jack, seal the gates or lose everything. The stars will eat the world." His heart sank. Seal the gates. The symbols weren't enough. Ilias's notebook had hinted at a final act, a sacrifice of will, of heart, to lock the forgotten ones away. Jack thought of Lily, his daughter, her laugh, her small hand in his. The voices used her, twisted her face to pull him in. He'd fought, carved, shouted, but the laughter was in his blood now, urging him to open the hole, to join the dance. He stood, his body aching, and grabbed the knife. The house shook, the laughter a deafening roar. He ran to the basement, his flashlight flickering. The hole was massive now, its edges writhing, glowing with a light that burned his eyes. Shadows surged inside, their forms jagged, their eyes blazing. The laughter was a scream. Jack, now free us. He knelt, his knife carving the symbols against Ara, Thou, Qui into the stone, his blood mixing with the dirt. He shouted the words, his voice raw, Zara Thou, Qui. The laughter faltered, the shadows slowing, but the fury returned, stronger, shaking the ground. Jack ran to the cellar, the trapdoor glowing, its chains broken. He carved the symbols into the wood, his hands bleeding, his voice breaking. Zara, Thal Qui. The laughter screamed, the shadows writhing, but the trapdoor dimmed, its light fading. Jack's heart pounded. It wasn't enough. The hole was their heart, the true gate. He ran back to the basement, the house trembling like it would collapse. The shadows were everywhere, their edges sharp, their eyes hungry. The laughter roared, "You cannot stop us, Jack. Join us." He thought of Lily, her real smile, not the lie they showed him. He thought of Elias, who fought and failed. He thought of Mrs. Grady's words, "Use your heart, say no." Jack dropped the knife and grabbed the wooden figure from the attic, its star face glowing. He held it over the hole, his voice steady. "I say no. You can't have me. You can't have her." He threw the figure into the hole. The laughter screamed, a sound that tore at his mind. But the light dimmed, the shadows shrinking. Jack carved one final symbol into his palms. Arand pressed it to the edge of the hole, his blood dripping into the dark. "No," he said, his voice strong. "You stay below." The house shook, the laughter fading to a wail, then a whisper, then nothing. The hole darkened, its edges still, the shadows gone. Jack fell to his knees, gasping, his blood pooling in the dirt. The house was quiet, the air heavy but calm. He crawled to the cellar, the trapdoor silent, its glow gone. He locked it, his hands shaking, and barred the door. He wrote in his notebook, "I sealed them. The laughter's gone. I used my heart, my no. Lily's safe, I think, but I'm not the same." He burned the journal, the notebook, the drawings, watching the flames eat the words. The house was still, but Jack felt it watching, waiting. That night, no dreams came. The void was gone, the stars silent. Jack slept, his first real sleep in weeks. When he woke, the house was just a household, creaky, empty. He packed his bag, locked the door, and drove away, the key left on the kitchen table. The laughter was quiet at last, but Jack knew it wasn't gone. It waited, below, for someone else to listen.